this thing working? Oh, it is. Hey, it's Mr. Meister. How are you? In this lesson, I want to teach you a little bit about the host and the guest and what is all involved with that. We've all watched TV before. We've all, watched late night television show or even daytime talk show, and we think, hey, I know what a host does. I know what a guest is. But there's a few things that I think are worth talking about and worth spending a little time jumping into. So let me start off with the host. And the first question I would have is, do you think of a host, a TV talk show host, as an actor or an actress? Many people are inclined to say, no, they're not an actor. But the truth of the matter is, I'm sure they are. I would say any TV host, even the guy on the 10 o'clock news, I would think of him as an actor. And you're like, why? That doesn't make sense. Anytime you are getting in front of a camera and acting a certain way, looking happy, looking pleasant, I would say there's an element of acting to that. I can guarantee you there are days that Jimmy Fallon is having a bad day, that he's like, oh, I really don't feel so good, I don't want to get in front of TV tonight. But hey, when the cameras are on, hey, we got a great show lined up for you tonight, and he turns it on. That is acting. Now, why do I talk to you about this? When it's your turn to be the host, you need to act a little bit. And for some of you, this won't be a problem. For others of you, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so scared, I don't want to do this. And you're going to have to try and look relaxed and act a little bit natural. You're thinking, okay, I'm not really sure what you're talking about, Mr. Meister. Can you give me an example? Let me give you an example.
Hello, welcome to the show.
Well, this is really bad, and I hope you're seeing it. Are you seeing an element of acting? All right, you need to be aware of when you are talking and how you sit communicates so much. Now, what is his body language communicating as he's sitting there? Let me show you again. Take a look at how he's sitting. His body language says, get me away from here. Look at the girl as well. She equally is like, I do not want to be here, get me out of here. Now, I point this all out to you because honestly, if they don't want to be there, as a viewer, why in the world would I want to watch this as well? So the first thing I'm going to say when you are the host or even the guest is you need to act. If you are scared of being the host or the guest, or you don't really want to do that, you wouldn't be the first, all right? But act a little bit. Do your best. Put on that little poker face and be like, hey, everything's okay. We're here on the show today, and it's going to be great, all right? When the reality is maybe you're scared to death inside, but don't let your audience see that. Act a little bit, all right? The next thing I would say about being a good host is who are you asking those questions for? I mean, your job is to ask questions, but many times as a host, you might already know the answer. The answer to that question is you're asking those questions for your audience at home. They want to be engaged with what you're doing. So think of the questions that you're asking. Don't ask lame questions like, so what's your favorite color, all right? No one really cares about stuff like that. They might be a whole lot more interested to say, what's it like to be the quarterback of the football team? Or tell me about your most interesting vacation and what made it so interesting. Those types of answers are probably going to keep your audience's interested a little bit more than your favorite color. So think of your audience as you're asking those questions, all right? Which leads me to the next question of how do you come up with a good question, all right? And this is really challenging for a lot of people. Let me say one way not to do it, and it's this way. So the host is like, so do you like pizza? Yes. Do you like sausage pizza? Yes. Do you like deep dish pizza? Yes. Do you like pepperoni pizza? No. Do you like Rosati's pizza? No. Do you like Giordano's pizza? Yes. All right. My point is this at all interesting? All right. It's really boring. All right. Mostly because my questions are lame. Maybe the topic isn't very exciting. But more importantly, as the person answering the questions, what am I always saying? Yes or no? Yes or no? Now my question is, who's doing all the work here? Is it the guest? Or is it the host? And if the host is asking yes or no questions, they're putting a lot more burden on themselves. So if you are scared of being the host because you're not sure what to say, let me start off by this way. To ask a good question, ask a good open-ended question. For example, so tell me, do you like pizza? And if so, maybe the most unusual pizza you had. Now what you're doing is you're getting the guest to respond and be like, oh, well, yeah, actually, I do love pizza. And let me tell you the most unusual pizza I ever had. I was in Hawaii once, and I had pizza with octopus meat on it. All right? Now, is that a whole lot more interesting than yes or no? Yes. And it leads me to my next thing that I would say if you want to be a good host is you got to listen to the answers. Some hosts, when they ask a question, as soon as they ask the question, so tell me, do you have a big family? And then they're like, what's the next question I need to come up with? And they panic and they're not even listening to the answer. And the answer might be, yeah, my brother was a serial killer. He killed my dog. He killed my sister. I know this is kind of morbid, but, I don't really have a good family life. And because I'm not listening as a host and I'm panicking about the next question, I might follow all that up with, so have you been to Great America lately? All right. And so the best way to be a host is ask that open-ended question that gets the people to be talking, and then most importantly, listen to the answer. If you listen to the answer, they're going to give you the next question. Let's go back to my pizza example. When the person responded about their favorite kind of pizza and the most unusual pizza they have, what were some things I could say off of that answer? When were you in Hawaii? How did the pizza taste? Who were you in Hawaii with? How long ago was that? Do you go on a lot of vacations? The guest, by just answering that open-ended question, is naturally giving the next topic of things that you could ask about. But you need to be patient and listen to that answer, and they're going to give you that next question. All right? Now, some people are like, I don't think I can do this, Mr. Meister. I'd be a whole lot more comfortable going in with my list of questions that I want to ask the host, and I'll just do that. And again, to that I say, if you go in with a list, it is going to be the most unnatural kind of conversation. Oprah doesn't have a list. Ellen doesn't have a list. Jimmy Fallon doesn't have a list. They sit and they listen and they see what unfolds. And you need to do the same as well. For some of you, this won't be hard. For others, you got to relax and let it happen. You're like, no, I can't do it. Let me ask you this. When you go out to lunch, I assume all of you had lunch yesterday or today or tomorrow, you're going to be eating with some friends. Do you show up to that lunch table with 6 or 8 other people with a list of questions that you want to ask everyone sitting at the table? Of course not. You sit down, you take a bite of your sandwich, you ask, so how was your class? Second hour, and you see what they say. And then from there, the conversation unravels. Being a host and being a guest is nothing more than that. Just let the conversation unravel. Let me show you an example of a host who really doesn't quite get this concept, and he really blows it.
I'd say it's more type of underground, in the clubs and stuff.
How many people are in the band? How many members do you have there?
About 4. Drummer, bass, lead guitar, singer.
You have, wow, so you're on track, soccer, play the guitar, gonna go to Europe someday. How's your mom doing?
What? How's your mom doing? We could be talking about track, we could be talking about soccer, we could be talking about being in a band, we could talk about traveling to Europe. And what does our host ask? How's your mom doing? All right, this is a host who's not really necessarily listening, and they're certainly not asking questions that our audience is going to want to listen to. Unfortunately, this interview gets worse. Let's watch.
My mother, well, she's doing pretty good, Dan.
It's good to hear. That's good to hear. Your dad all right? Healthy?
Yeah.
No illnesses?
No.
Cool.
Still thinks he's in the CIA or something.
Do you have any brothers or sisters?
I have 2 brothers and 2 sisters.
They're all good?
All out of the house.
It's good to hear. It's good to hear. So, you guys have a big family then, right?
Yeah. 7 people all together.
And you guys eat good dinners?
They're pretty big.
It's good to hear.
Well fed.
So, you guys got a backyard too, right?
Well, I'd say it's about 2 miles long.
2 miles long, wow.
A lot of people say, Mr. Meister, where do you come up with this stuff? This guy is pretty bad. Did you stage that? The answer is no. None of these clips I'm showing you are staged. They are actual things that students did or made when they were making a talk show. Now, I will say this. Most of these clips are all from when I taught at another high school. I taught the same subject, but I taught it at a different high school, and I intentionally used clips from that school, so we're not focused on the people and be like, oh, look, there's my cousin when he was a freshman. But instead, you're focused more on the error. So I intentionally use the older stuff. But what I could say is for every mistake that I'm showing you from years ago, I could pull up 10 from last term that is the exact same thing happening. Now, the reason we're looking at these mistakes, I'm not trying to amuse you or entertain you with this stuff. I want you to learn from these mistakes. I'm not a real good golfer. And if you took me out on a golf course and I went with a golf pro and I showed him my swing, he'd be like, oh my gosh, okay, you're doing a bunch of stuff wrong, all right? He might say, you know, hold the club like this, position your feet like this, turn your shoulders a little bit. Now, is that going to turn me into a pro golfer? No, but right off the bat, those rookie kinds of mistakes that everyone makes because they don't know how to hold a club or how to stand right will automatically and quickly maybe improve their game at least a little bit. I'm doing the same thing here with you with these clips. I'm showing you these rookie talk show video mistakes, and I want you to learn from them because if we didn't talk about them, chances are real good most of you would be making this exact same kind of mistake. Asking lame questions, sitting, you know, with this, and as we show you more examples, you'll be like, oh yeah. Many of you would be like, I would never be that dumb, I would not make that mistake. And yet, like I said earlier, I could show you multitudes of examples from just the previous term of students doing the same thing. So I'm trying to keep you from falling into this trap. I don't care that you make mistakes in this class, I really don't. That's what learning's all about. But let's be creative and make some new mistakes. These rookie mistakes, let's move beyond that. All right. Let's move on to the next section, which is when should you be looking at the audience as a host on the ins and the outs? You're like, okay, ins and outs, what's that? Well, let me ask you this question. When you are the host, where is your attention focused the majority of the time during the talk show? It's not going to be at the camera because when I'm looking at the camera, who am I really looking at? I'm looking at all of you sitting in the audience. When I'm doing my talk show, if I'm the host, I'm going to be looking at my guests the whole time, and we're going to be talking back and forth. So now the question is, when do I look into the camera? Well, there's 4 times you want to look into the camera. At the very beginning of the show, when you're doing the introduction, you're like, hey, with us today is this guy right over here. He's a great guy. I think you're going to love to get to know him. I'm going to tell you all about him. I'm looking into the camera because I'm talking to all of you at home on the couch. But as soon as I'm done introducing him, then I focus my attention over here on him or her, and then, you know, we start our conversation. But eventually that thing called a commercial comes up. And so as the guest is finishing, oh, that's really interesting. I would love to hear more about your favorite kind of movie, but we have to go to a commercial break. And I'm no longer looking at the guest, I'm looking at the audience at home. And this is called a wrap up. Now, this is an out where I'm leaving the show, or an in is where we're back from commercial and be like, hey, we were just here talking with so-and-so and they were just about to tell us their favorite kind of movie. Let's continue that conversation. And now I'm back over here. That's called an in. But let's first focus on the out. So as I demonstrated, a good out kind of recaps what the person was just saying, you know, like, oh, so you really love soft, sad movies that, you know, make you cry. Well, that's very touching. We'll be right back. We're going to hear a little bit more about his favorite movie, The Notebook, in just a minute. All right? There's a wrap-up where I'm recapping what was said, and I'm talking to the audience, and then we pull away and we go to a commercial break. Now, you might say, that's really not that hard, Mr. Meister. I think I can handle that. All right? The truth of the matter is, it's maybe a little harder than you think. Let me show you some examples of some students who maybe messed this up a little bit.
Actor, but yeah, my mom suggested, since I'm pretty good with numbers, that I should be an accountant. Mm-hmm. So I'm taking that into consideration. Like,
are you taking the class here? Accounting?
No, I might take it either next year or senior year or something like that.
Okay, and we have to go to a commercial break, so we'll be right back with Justin.
Now, some of you might say, Mr. Meister, I really didn't think that was that big of a deal. It really wasn't that bad. Okay, maybe I saw a little bit of abruptness there. All right, if you're not convinced, let's take a look at Joe. Joe is maybe a little bit even harsher with his wrap-up.
Now, on your junior varsity squad that you're on, do you do flips and stuff? You know?
I took a gymnastics class over the summer, and I do have...
That's fantastic. We'll be back right after this.
So mean.
Okay, hopefully there you can see that that was pretty bad, all right? Again, a good host is gonna very casually and in a relaxing way summarize what they just heard, turn to the audience and say, "No, that's very interesting. I would like to hear a little bit more, but we'll, be right back after this commercial break." Try and be cool, calm, and collected that way. Let me tell you why most people are very quick to wrap it up. Because when they're the host, they're dreading being the host. They're like, I don't know what to say. I don't know what I got to ask next. And then they see this sign from the floor director that says, okay, it's time to go to commercial. And they're like, hallelujah, I get to stop. Yeah, shut up. We're going to commercial. All right, and then all the pressure's off of them. Again, remember, being a good host means you're an actor. You might be feeling excitement inside, like, thank goodness we get to end this misery. But the reality is you gotta relax and let the person finish. And if they talk for another 30 seconds, let them talk. But just relax and be like, oh, well, that's very interesting. I would love to hear more. And we will when we come back from these commercials. Once the commercial is on and we're off the air, then you can do your, hallelujahs and all of that. But until then, again, be a good actor or actress when you are the host. So that's all about being a good host. Let's move on to the guest. How do you be a good guest? So when you are the guest, I want you to know that you have one of the easier jobs in the studio. And that is to answer questions about a subject you know everything about, you. Now, just a couple things I ask when you are the guest, and you'll find out that this job is quite simple. But one of your jobs is to provide an introduction. And you might be saying, wait, I thought I just have to answer questions. You do, but realize your host is going to be introducing you, and chances are real good they really don't know a whole lot about who you are and what you like and dislike in that. So it's your job to write that introduction. Now, when you're writing that introduction, there are 3 things you need to remember. Number 1, that first sentence should be some kind of opening introductory line. Hello, welcome to today's show. I am Mr. Meister, your host, and with us today is, let's say your name's Eric, is Eric, a student at Mundelein High School. That's a great opening line. It's welcoming the audience, it's saying who I am, and it's also introducing who my guest is about to be. Now, the next thing people make the mistake of is they just write all about themselves. Well, again, pretend I'm Eric. I like pizza, I like roller skating, and I like Disney princess movies, all right? If that's what you write down in your introduction, great. As a host, I've learned 3 things about you, but that's what I'm gonna read in front of the camera and the teleprompter. And so I'm gonna say, hello, I'm Mr. Meister, welcome to today's show. With us today is Eric. I like pizza, I like roller skating, and I like Disney princess movies. Well, that's not true. I'm the host, and maybe I hate Disney princess movies, but if that's what the guest wrote, then that's a problem. So number 2 thing you need to remember when you are the guest and you are writing out your introduction is have that opening line. But the second thing you need to remember is to write it in third person. Talk about yourself as if you're somebody else. So if my name is Eric, here's what I'm actually writing. With us today is Eric, a student at Mundelein High School. Eric enjoys roller skating on the beach, or I guess not the beach, but maybe the boardwalk by the beach. Eric enjoys pizza, and Eric really enjoys going to the movies and seeing Disney princess movies because he's in love with princesses, all right, whatever it may be. The point is, I can talk about Eric because I'm the host. Now, it might feel weird writing it that way, but write your introduction in that third person. When you are writing out those introductions, provide details. Don't just say, he likes pizza, he likes to travel. Tell me where you like to travel to. Tell me what kind of pizza you like. I mean, you don't need to give me your whole life history, but if you just write these short, choppy sentences, the introduction is going to be kind of lame. So give me, he really enjoys traveling with his family to Mexico year in and year out on the cruises or whatever it might be. But give a little bit more. When you say you strongly dislike spiders, tell me why. He got bit by one once when he was a child, or they just really disgust him with their hairy little legs, all right? Whatever it is, the more detail you give, the better. And then finally, the third thing I want you to remember when you're writing out your introduction is you have your opening line, you're writing it in third person. The last thing is you need a closing line, and not a closing line for the end of the show, a closing line for that introduction. Something along the lines of, we just heard who you are and what you like and dislike. Well, let's talk with Eric now. As a host, I'm going to read that, and then naturally I'm going to put the introduction aside now, and now I'm going to turn and talk to you. That's the kind of closing I'm looking for, not the closing for the end of the show. The host can make that up as they go along. So this is an introduction that you actually will need to write out. Good 4 to 6 or more sentences that really describe who you are. The second thing I'm going to say about being a good host as your job is you need to provide complete answers. Every now and then you are going to get a host that doesn't ask good questions. They're not asking open-ended questions. They're maybe asking yes or no questions. And you need to take that lame question and help the host out because maybe they're not real good at it and give them more information than they need. If they say, do you like pizza? You say, actually, yeah, I do like pizza. Matter of fact, my favorite pizza is stuffed Giordano's sausage and mushroom pizza. That is my favorite pizza in the world. All right? At least now you're giving a little bit more information other than yes and helping your host out. Hopefully your host will be like, oh, well, do you go there often? Why do you like Giordano's more than Lou Monaldi's? Or, hopefully your host will be sharp enough to pick up on the fact that, oh, yeah, maybe I'm not asking great questions. But provide good, complete answers.